was founded in '67 by Jack Gunther, and he did a tremendous job of getting the leading citizens of New Canaan to contribute land to the trust, to kind of preserve that rural beauty of New Canaan. He handed it off after 15 years to Arthur Potts, who did a fabulous job of land banking and building up not only some of the Landtrust holdings, but also a small endowment over that time period. And Art really proved that you can manage a lot of open space with a very small amount of funding that the membership contributed. There's more land trust out there than most people are aware of. We have over 70 parcels, 315 acres. So you could be driving up 123, just past Canoe Hill before you come to the Country Club Road, and there's a big open field, and everyone looks at it and says, it's so nice. It's got a beautiful stone wall around it and a solitary tree planted in the middle. It's land trust. And frankly, most of the time when you're driving down a road and you just see an open strip of property, probably heavily grown with trees, and maybe a small little split rail fence, that's most likely going to be land trust property. It's there, most people don't even know it. In fact, about 500 homes in New Canaan abut or adjoin or across from land trust property. And many of those neighbors don't really know, whose property is that? Land trust means this is property that has been gifted or an conservation easement has been given to the land trust to hold it as open space, most often as a kind of wildlife sanctuary in perpetuity. It's deeded in perpetuity to be held as open space. It can never be developed. And that's the key requirement in all these gifts to the land trust, is that it's given as an open space, not to be developed, for the passive recreational use of all of New Canaan. New Canaan Land Conservation Trust is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization, and it holds the property on behalf of all the citizens of New Canaan. It's your land, it's my land. And many neighbors have this tremendous benefit of adjoining a 20-acre land trust property, so they have their 4 acres and then 20 acres behind it. And every neighbor feels like those 20 acres are part of his holdings. So, we add a lot of benefit to the real estate values here in New Canaan. I think the best example would be if, 50 years ago, if you lived next to Central Park, you probably just had barbed wire in front of your windows. But today, it's the most expensive or valuable real estate property in the world because it's next to that beautiful open space. Well, we have 70 parcels, 500 homes around them, all of whose value is enhanced by being next to or near to a land trust holding. It's often the donors to the land trust are the people who've lived here a long time and have become enamored of the beauty of what surrounds them and have a desire to pass that on. One of the best examples is Nancy Watson Symington, who had a beautiful estate and yet found a way to carve off almost 50 acres and donate it to the land trust. And they were 50 acres that were undeveloped, where she and her husband would take walks, and her children played trailed around in there. And she just felt like, boy, this is such a beautiful asset. It could have been subdivided into about 32 homes, and instead it was donated in stages to the land trust. And now all those neighbors and people within 1,000 yards can walk there and visit. One of the biggest challenges the land trust faces today is awareness. Many people will drive past one of our properties or live near our properties and not know it is a land trust holding. So we're working on that. We've just got a grant to survey about half our holdings. And with that surveying, we're going to put down markers, we're going to put up signs on the trees to say, hey, this is land trust. It's for your benefit and all our benefit. We're becoming a little more active with activities, such as putting the trails out and letting the town know that you can come walk on the Brown Sanctuary or the Nancy Watson Symington Sanctuary woodlands up on the other side of town. The third point is we're going to drive for membership. We think that land trust may not be for every family in New Canaan, but a good percentage of the households in New Canaan should be interested, if only to take their kids for a walk or have a visitor come into town and take a halftime break and say, 20-minute stroll on this property, it'll be nice. And then finally, funding. If you can get awareness, activities, membership up, your funding comes up. And the best example I can tell you is this, is that the New Canaan Landtrust operates at about 1/20th the scale of the comparable operations in Greenwich, Darien, and Wilton. So this is, from a citizen standpoint or from a local funding standpoint, a very underfunded operation. It's all volunteer, so every dollar that's contributed goes into activities or stewardship of the Landtrust properties. But because we haven't had the awareness, the activities, the membership, the funding is commensurately low, we hope to build that up over time. And with more funding, we can do things like improve stone walls around our property. I mean, just that little bit of edging that makes it look nice. And that kind of authentic, 19th century farmer walls, which many of these properties were, is one activity, or devining, taking vines out of trees, or going after invasive plants. There are a lot of good stewardship activities we can do with more funding. There are a few naysayers, there are a lot of supporters, and there's a big middle, I don't even know it exists. I think the naysayers would say, oh, it's a tax dodge. And I said, well, there's just no way you can give away $1 million worth of property and come out financially ahead. It doesn't work. The government doesn't allow it, the tax work doesn't come that way. I think some of the naysayers say, well, it takes property off the tax rolls of the towns. But then it doesn't require sewer systems, it doesn't require education systems, it doesn't, it just creates open space, and it enhances the value of the surrounding properties. So you can't argue that it's reducing taxable revenues in effect if the value enhancement of open space is there. And then the other naysayers may be, I don't like it, it's a little untidy, a tree fell down, or you have a vine growing over there, I wish you'd clean it up. And it's not meant to be like your backyard, a mown croquet lawn. It's meant to be wild, natural space so that all different types of animals and creatures can live in there, and hopefully a diversity of plant life as well. We're in this for perpetuity. There isn't I've got a 1-year plan and then it all comes to an end. This property has to be held in perpetuity on behalf of the citizens of New Canaan. So we have an endowment. It's something that we try to build to make sure we have enough funding to cover the liability requirements that you need for your property. But the simplest measure of success is you can drive by a property and see 2 young children with their dad and then a pair of grandparents walking behind, and they're just strolling through the woods, giggling, laughing, running. And so, success for the Landtrust is probably just one family at a time. And that if we can go from 200 people visiting the Landtrust properties to 500, it would be a huge success. It's not, doesn't have the simplest, corporate financial measures or election result measures. It's something you do, and you try to make people feel good about being outdoors. People should understand that our goal is to have a gentle touch on the land. We're not going to put gravel down on pathways. We're not going to clear big lots of land. We're going to be gentle, and what we want to be is good stewards, and so that we can learn how should you manage meadows, or how should you manage woodlands, or what should you allow to happen near wetlands. I think people should be appreciative in a way of if they walk by it, they can just breathe deeply and sort of relax for a little bit. That would be kind of my objective, I think. I'm not looking to, I don't have firm, hard measures of I need this many members or that many. We have goals as a board of what we'd like to achieve in funding or in land holdings and what have you, but it's one of the beauties of not-for-profit in a way, having come from a corporate environment where every quarter you had to get somewhere. You can kind of take a more relaxed and a more balanced view of what you need to do, particularly when you're working in an all-volunteer environment.